Hello, I'm Michael Smith, Executive Director of My Brother's Keeper Alliance and Director of Youth Opportunity Programs with the Obama Foundation. Since our founding in 2014, the My Brother's Keeper team has traveled coast to coast to meet young leaders, local elected officials, tribal leaders, business executives, nonprofit practitioners, and everyday citizens, all of whom are creating new, exciting pathways for boys and young men of color. The leaders we've met at the local level, leaders like you, are working tirelessly to address the barriers facing boys and young men of color in their communities. And you've told us that we can help accelerate your efforts to build lasting change. That's why we're launching the MBK Alliance Equity Framework and certification to provide greater support to the network of MBK communities and to set clear and measurable standards for building safe and supportive communities for boys and young men of color. Communities where boys and young men of color feel valued and have clear pathways to opportunity. The MBK framework will help you uncover the disparate outcomes for boys and young men of color in your community, review the policies and practices that have held the disparities in place, and gather the right players to change it.
Through our work, we've heard from community leaders across the country about the importance of having a shared vision and set of standards around what it means to be an MBK community. Many community leaders asked us, how do I know if the work I'm leading with boys and young men of color is actually transforming systems? And how do we sustain the work to see actual outcomes? Questions like those led us to develop the MBK Equity Framework, a common set of supports, resources, and expectations for MBK communities, along with ways they can connect with other efforts across the country. The MBK Equity Framework is a resource designed for any community looking to improve the lives of boys and young men of color and underserved youth. The framework has been rigorously developed from the ground up in partnership with government, policy, development, equity, and organizational leadership from local and national organizations on the front lines of youth and community development. The framework is designed so that existing MBK communities, new and emerging MBK communities, philanthropic organizations, and practitioners can address the conditions our boys and young men of color face and reach a new standard of success. The MBK Equity Framework is comprised of 4 components: a set of governing core values and elements of success, a series of self-assessments that can help you measure your community's progress and improving the lives of boys and young men of color, a roadmap and toolbox which provide resources and next steps based on your assessment, and a story map which provides case studies and profiles of successful communities. The MBK Equity Framework identifies 8 elements of success to help indicate what strategies are working and where further improvement is needed. At the forefront of this assessment is the importance of clear and accurate data, a shared consensus among stakeholders, and an agreement on the importance of MBK's justice-based work. The 8 elements of success include collaboration, if you want to go far, go together, equity, none of us are free until all of us are free, vision, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else, systems change, root out, reform, reimagine, evidence, invest in what works, focus on results, data-driven decisions, what gets measured gets managed, sustainability, invest in lasting solutions, infrastructure, and results, stakeholder engagement, communicate early, often, and in all directions.
RISE is honored to represent MBK in Richmond, California. We can speak to element 2 of the MBK Equity Framework. None of us are free until all of us are free. Every day, young people are experiencing gender identity, race, and class as intersectional and non-binary. So RISE asserts that wellness for boys and young men of color necessitates wellness for girls and young women of color and gender non-conforming young people of color. Gender justice, queer justice, and racial justice are core to RISE's peer identity groups, youth leadership institutes, art and culture, education and health programming. We stay approximate to young people most harmed by systems. RISE staff reflect and come from our community, people of color, LGBTQ+ community, and many are formerly RISE members. We center relationships, healing, and justice for systems change.
Here at MBK in Los Angeles County, we've truly embraced the MBK Equity Framework especially Element 5, that's focused on systems change. Right, we really want to root out, reform, and reimagine our justice systems, as well as all of our county systems, and in particular our approach to youth diversion. So for example, we facilitated deliberate collaborations between government agencies, a lot of local community-based organizations and nonprofits, as well as resident leaders, people with lived experience, so that we can develop and launch the county's youth diversion plan. We now offer community-based alternatives to incarceration for over 80% of our youth offenses. And this has dramatically reduced the number of boys and young men of color that have come into contact with LA County's carceral systems, while we focus on directly dismantling the school-to-prison pipeline and changing our entire justice system as we know it.
Hi, I'm Mayor Ron Nirenberg from San Antonio, Texas, and I'm a proud My Brother's Keeper San Antonio Leadership Table member. The MBK Equity Framework is an excellent tool that we've utilized to strengthen our governance from the ground up to make investments in lasting solutions, infrastructure, and results, ensuring sustainability. My Brother's Keeper San Antonio's network structure is made up of 3 levels of system leadership, 3 work groups, the anchor team, and the leadership table. The 3 work groups focus on restorative justice, post-secondary success, and justice-involved young people. Each work group has community engagement and system change objectives that ground the work they do collectively. Those groups have a chair, which forms the anchor team, which advocates on behalf of the work group to the leadership table. The leadership table has the authority to allocate resources and shape policy as a joint network and at their institutions. This structure and commitment allow for boys and young men of color to have a clearer pathway to obtaining a post-secondary degree.
As we embark on this journey together, we encourage you to engage with us. If you have any questions about the equity framework or certification process, please head to our website to learn more. Thank you for your dedication to our boys and young men of color and your continued support of the My Brother's Keeper mission. This framework and certification process is an important next step in connecting and strengthening the work of organizations like yours and so many others across the nation. We look forward to working with you soon.